Hey guys, this is Adam. I was going through my videos today and I just noticed I haven't done a video on law yet, so I think it's about time to do one. So law is a subject that I've been studying for a while and it absolutely fascinates me. I'm going to first start out by pointing out a few resources that I would recommend you study if you're interested in learning about the law. Couple of experts on the law, Dean Clifford and Robert Maynard. I think they're both located in Canada. John Harris, I think he's in the UK. Then the movie Ungrip, which is Ben Stewart's third movie. His first one was Esoteric Agenda, and then Kymatica was the second one. And Ungrip is his third one, which is focused around an individual named Rob. In the family page, couple of good books to read, of course. Thomas Paine's Common Sense lays a nice groundwork for understanding the revolution. Frederick Bastiat's The Law, probably the most definitive book on the proper function of law. You can access a law dictionary online. I believe Black's Law Dictionary is free online. However, I would recommend getting PDFs of the different editions of Black's Law Dictionary. I have every edition of Black's Law Dictionary, Ballantyne's and Bouvier's, because the legal terms change over the years, and it's important to know how the terms change and figure out what context they might be using these particular terms in the court of law. Excuse me. The legal terms are actually quite shocking, because even though the words are in English, they don't mean what normal English words mean. The law is actually jokingly referred to as legalese because it really is its own language. So, getting started. Okay, so there are two types of law on this planet. There is common law, which is also referred to as the law of the land or civil law. And then there is uniform commercial code, also referred to as the law of water or Maritime Admiralty law. Common law is different depending on the country you're in. There's things that you can do in China that you can't do in Japan. There's things that you can do in America that you can't do in Singapore. So common law, or the law of the land, is different for depending on which land you're on. In contrast to that, however, there is uniform commercial code, which is banking law. And uniform commercial code is the same regardless of where you are. This is to make sure that all business transactions are operating under the same legal pretenses, so that there is no confusion about international trade. If Russia is going to do a business deal with China, they're going to pay because they're operating under Uniform Commercial Code. It is the end-all be-all when it comes to banking and business and finance law. So, when the United States was created and the Revolutionary War happened and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights was created, the way that this country was set up was that each individual person was their own sovereign entity. What that means is basically every man is a king and every woman is a queen. They are sovereign. They are not beholden to anybody or anything or any government or anything else except for their creator. This is the hierarchy as law was set up. You have God, your creator, whatever that is. It's whatever you define as your creator or your God. And then you, and then below that would be the merchant class or the business banking class, or the law society, as it's often referred to. Now, there are only 3 laws in the United States of America. You cannot infringe on anyone's life, liberty, or property. You can't harm anyone's life. You can't beat people up. You can't kill anybody. You can't rape people. You can't kidnap people. You can't harm somebody's life. You also cannot infringe on somebody's liberty, their right to express themselves, their right to be an individual, to be free. You cannot restrict somebody's freedoms. They have the right to say what they want, believe what they want, to think what they want, say what they want, do what they want, as long as they're not infringing on anybody else's life, liberty, or property in the process. And of course, you cannot infringe on anyone's property. Can't steal from people. Can't trespass on their property. Pretty straightforward. Those are the only laws that exist in America. Now, early on in school, they taught law. All the way from elementary up into college, they taught law as a common core subject. And they taught you how to defend your rights and exercise your rights. They taught you what a sovereign was. They taught you what the difference between being a sovereign and being part of the law society is. And see, there are a number of statutes, acts, and regulations which are similar to laws, but only apply to those within the law society, which would be merchants, bankers, corporations, anyone else that is part of the law society. But they don't actually apply to the sovereign individual. And see, the Civil War was not what they tell us it was in the history books. They say that the Civil War was focused mainly around slavery. However, this was not exactly the case. I mean, it was in the mix, but it was not the main subject of the Civil War. See, what was happening was the North was attempting to impose the Uniform Commercial Code, Maritime Admiralty banking laws onto the people. And in some minor effect, the South held that if I'm a sovereign and I own land, that makes that my own country, which means you do not have the authority to tell me that I can't own slaves, because that's my country. Those are my laws that I have for my country. However, this was settled very early on, and it was pretty well understood that under the Constitution, that simply does not apply. You cannot. That's because if you have a slave, then of course you're infringing on somebody's life and their liberty. So that was only a minor issue. The slavery issue was already on its way out during the Civil War. And what it really was about was the development of the United States as a corporation. Now, what had happened was, after the Civil War and after the North won, they implemented martial law under the auspices that they needed to ensure that none of the southern states were still going to continue using slaves. However, they never actually ended the martial law, and we are still under martial law today from the Civil War. Most people don't know this, but you can look this up. This is not a secret, just hidden. And of course, they succeeded in creating the corporation, the United States of America. The United States of America is now a corporation, and has been since the Civil War. This then, of course, created employees. We are all employees of that corporation, and as such, we are making money for that corporation. To explain this better, prior to the Civil War, you were able to get in a bar fight with somebody, and then both of you could sign a contract with each other, and then go out in the street and have a duel and shoot each other. Because this was two countries going to war. This was a declaration of war that you signed, as one sovereign going to war against another sovereign. Post-Civil War, we all ended up falling under the statutes, acts, and regulations of the Law Society, which operates under Uniform Commercial Code. So we are no longer operating under the law of the land. And there is no such thing as a common law court anymore. All courts are operating under Uniform Commercial Code. In every single court case, there is some type of money transferring from somewhere to somewhere. bench in Latin means bank. Court is a game. Court is called courts because that's what you play games on. You play basketball on a court. You play tennis on a court. These terms are not used lightly. All law is a body of words. That's it. Government does not exist except on paper and in your mind. That is a quote from Bill Cooper. All law is a body of words that people use to claim their authority over you. But if these words do not apply to you, then they have no authority over you. But if you don't know that, you don't know how to defend yourself against that, they will just do whatever they want, which is what they've been doing. So, a big part of this is when we got off the gold standard and the development of the Federal Reserve. I very highly recommend this book, The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. It is a fantastic read on the development of the Federal Reserve Bank and how our currency became fiat currency, which essentially means that it's no longer backed by gold or anything else. It's just backed by nothing. And you can read Modern Money Mechanics, which is the book under which banks operate. And it explains in there, in very convoluted terms, essentially what the functions of banks today are. And the issue with the development of the Federal Reserve Bank is that it's a private bank. It has no affiliation to the United States whatsoever. And it is the sole proprietor of the United States' currency. And essentially how this works, in very crude terms, you can read Modern Money Mechanics if you will, but to break it down very simply, when the United States needs money, let's say it needs $50 billion to add to the currency for its country, they will print up $50 billion worth of government bonds, which they pretty much just print up out of thin air, and then they give those to the Federal Reserve, and in return, the Federal Reserve then prints up $50 billion worth of currency, and then gives that to the United States. However, the $50 billion that the United States receives from the Federal Reserve is loaned. It is a loan from this bank, meaning that we have to pay the interest on that loan. But of course, therein lies the problem, because the only way the United States is able to make its money is to get it from the Federal Reserve. Meaning that there is nowhere for the United States to get the money to pay for the interest on the loan that it got from the Federal Reserve, aside from getting more money from the Federal Reserve, in which it will still have to pay more interest on that loan. And thus the cycle repeats. This is the giant Ponzi scheme that is the Federal Reserve Bank. And this all coincided with FDR's New Deal. And what that essentially did was make it so each individual is now a product, a Maritime Admiralty product, in which we, the citizens, are used as collateral for the debt that we owe to the Federal Reserve Bank. If you take your birth certificate, your original birth certificate, you will notice a series of red numbers on the bottom right or left hand side. I can't remember which. If you take those numbers to any good stockbroker, they will look up those numbers on the New York Stock Exchange and find out how much you are worth. You, as a Maritime Admiralty product, have value on the New York Stock Exchange. Your body is owned by the Vatican under Roman canon law. Maritime Admiralty business banking law. Less than 3% of the United States currency is physical money. The rest is digits on a computer screen. Now, the way this works is when a ship is pulling into port, it's referred to as being in its berth. And when it's in its berth, it's tied to the dock, and there needs to be a certificate of manifest for each product that that ship is bringing into the United States. The United States needs to know, okay, how many TVs or how many cars or whatever it is, how much products are you bringing into our country to sell? What is the, are they damaged? How much do they weigh? What do they look like? This is the certificate of manifest that is required for each ship that is bringing products into the United States. Well, your mother, as a Maritime Admiralty product, is also producing a product to sell here in the United States. So when you were born in your mother's water through her birth canal, the dock has to write a certificate of manifest, also known as a birth certificate, to find out, okay, what is this product? What does it look like? What does it weigh? Is it damaged? Because they need to know how much money is this product going to provide for our country. As I said, these terms are chosen very carefully. This is not an accident. This is not a joke. This is not... they chose these terms very specifically. And as such, you, being a product, are automatically under Uniform Commercial Code. Each individual is now born into this society. There are ways that you can rescind your birth certificate and operate outside of the Law Society. It's a long process, but to be honest, I'm not sure a lot of people would even be able to handle it. Because what that means is you have to take responsibility for yourself. And a lot of people are just not willing to do that. They are so completely dependent on the system now that most people will not be able to break free from it. Now, here's the deal. There is a way out of this. We can stop all this. The solution is so simple. Essentially what it comes down to is that all we need to do is stop. Stop feeding the system. These billionaires that are hoarding resources, hoarding more resources and money than they could spend or use in 3 lifetimes, which is a mental disease, got that way because we keep supporting the system. The way that it stops is all we do is remember that all we need to survive is food, shelter, clothing, water, medicine, and entertainment. That's all human beings need to survive. So, if we all just stop what we're doing and focus on one of those areas, whether it be providing clothing for somebody, providing food for people, providing shelter, building shelters for people, providing entertainment and art for people, ensuring that everyone has clean, pure water to drink. Whatever it is, all we have to do is stop what we're doing and start caring for each other. Because as it's set up now, the state is basically saying you cannot take care of yourselves. So we now have to take care of you for you, because you can't do it on your own. That is why we all are wards of the state and no longer sovereign. We don't need the government's permission to feed each other and to clothe each other and to provide housing for each other. If we all stopped, the whole house of cards will fall. Obviously easier said than done. All I'm saying is that is the solution. That's it. That's all we need to do. And all of that supposed power that these people have, that are manipulating and guiding society behind the scenes, it's gone. No money, no power. Simple as that. Alright, so that was just kind of a tertiary, perfunctory explanation of what law is and how it functions. Obviously it goes a lot deeper than that, and I'll probably have to do more videos in the future. But I'm going to stick with that for now. Thank you all for listening, and I'll be doing more videos soon. Thank you.